People pleasers aren't being nice, they're terrified. Not because they're weak, but because somewhere early in life, they learned that being themselves wasn't emotionally or even physically safe. And if that resonates, stay with me, because today isn't about blaming your past. It's about understanding your nervous system and reclaiming your power. Welcome to From People Pleaser to Powerhouse, Breaking Free from Approval Addiction. I'm Angie Hawkins, the Inner Glow Coach, and I help women stop chasing love and start radiating it from within so you can finally feel happy, free, and loved for who you actually are. And I teach this work because I've lived it. I grew up with emotionally unavailable parents. And as an adult, I understand what that means, but as a child, I didn't have the language or tools to interpret the situation. So the way I interpreted it was I developed a belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. I thought that something was wrong with me and that I didn't inherently deserve love. And the problem with this is your beliefs dictate your behaviors, and then your behaviors dictate what you attract and experience in life. So for a very long time, I struggled because I was always looking for love and approval in everything outside of myself. I was a textbook people pleaser. In romantic relationships, I was always chasing them, and I wouldn't even question, do I even like this person? I was attracted to emotionally unavailable people because subconsciously I was trying to earn the same love that I didn't get from my parents. So it was just, I was on this autopilot system because it's basically like a computer program. I was just searching to get this love from my parents. So I was seeking out people like my parents to somehow correct the situation in real time, but it was just totally dysfunctional. And even outside romantic relationships, at work, with family, with friends, and a lot of these situations were also dysfunctional, but I overgave, I overfunctioned, I was always giving to things outside of themselves. And giving is doing, it's not being, because I didn't believe I deserved love as I was as a being, so I was always doing and performing, and it's exhausting. And anyone who has lived this knows how exhausting it is because it's like a hamster wheel. You're always searching for that next hit of external validation. And even once you get it, it's just short term. So you're always looking for the next hit. And then if something happens to take a blow to your ego, like a negative comment or something like that, then you're even more desperate for the next hit. But this is what I had to learn the hard way, and I wish someone would have told me earlier. If you are alive on this earth right now, you are worthy exactly as you are. You don't have to earn your right to exist. You are worthy as being. You don't have to do anything. And yet, when you don't believe that, you build this entire identity around proving your value and always chasing and doing and all of those things. And that's the identity of a people pleaser. So, to take a step back, this is how people pleasing feels in your body. When someone is upset with you, you feel anxiety, you feel guilt. You may even have an internal voice whispering, because I used to have a really harsh, critical inner voice, and I think a lot of people pleasers and perfectionists have this. So if you can resonate with the critical inner voice, it's probably telling you when someone's disappointing with you, like, just fix it, just smooth it over, just keep the peace, as if it's your responsibility to keep the peace. But it's not peace, it's survival. People pleasing, nobody's born a people pleaser. It's not who you are. It's a behavioral strategy that you learned to keep yourself emotionally or even physically safe. And while that strategy may have protected you when you were under a caregiver's authority, because a lot of these behaviors develop in our early years because we don't take care of ourselves. We have caretakers who are taking care of us, and it is hard to rock the boat with your caretakers because they're giving you food, they're taking you to school, they're putting a roof over your head. So your actual physical safety and survival is dependent on them. But as an adult, we can take care of ourselves and we're not dependent on caretakers, but we had at least 18 years of these behavioral strategies of doing things a certain way. So it just becomes a habit. And again, it becomes part of our subconscious programming. So we're just basically running on a computer program. But the problem is it's exhausting and it's very dysfunctional. And what a lot of people, like when I was a people pleaser, I always had this I'm fine exterior, like the strong one, everything's fine, I can handle it, I can take care of it. But underneath, I was so exhausted, and even worse, I was completely unhappy and unfulfilled. And even worse than that, I didn't even think that happiness and fulfillment was even something that was available to me, because in my mind, because I was living life in a certain way, I was like, that's just the way it is. But the problem was that was based on the belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. So this is why our beliefs are so powerful, because they truly dictate the quality of our lives. And another thing I wish I would have found out a long time ago, which I learned the hard way, beliefs are not facts. So even though it may not be easy to change your beliefs, it is simple in the sense that all you have to do is change your belief because it's not a fact. And the bottom line is, you're a human being. Your worth doesn't come from doing or being useful. It comes from being you. And when your identity is built on performance and all of these things outside of you, you get so disconnected from your inner light. And I know I repeat myself in a lot of my videos, but the whole foundation of my coaching is my coaching program is called Shine from the Inside, and it's based on this concept of we're all born with this inner light inside of us. Like when you see kids, they are like, they don't care what anybody thinks. They will say anything, they will do anything. And as an adult, it's actually kind of funny because we're so filtered and edited. It's actually funny and entertaining to watch kids and see them be so unfiltered and so unedited, but it's because their light is shining so bright. But then you go through life, and society and family systems and school systems tell us what we should and should not be doing, and that slowly starts dimming our lights. And it changes our entire identity because it gets us away. That light is our identity. And when we're getting pulled into all of these things outside of ourselves, it's dimming our light, and our identity is now based on things that aren't even us. And that is the real cost of people pleasing, because like for me, I used to struggle with chronic anxiety and depression, and I don't know what I thought. But now that I live my life in alignment with who I really am, I am very rarely anxious or depressed. And I wish a lot of people understood that we are the cause of a lot of our problems. And once we take accountability for that, first of all, shame may come up. Trust me. When I went through this process, shame does come up when I had to accept accountability for some of the things that were happening in my life. But that also empowers you to be the source that changes it, because when we have this victim mentality, we believe that because things are happening outside of us that we have no control over them, but we actually do have some sense of control over some things, and the things we don't have control over, we can at least control how we respond to them. So the cost of people pleasing is basically giving away all of our power. So that's why I always coin this transformation from people pleaser to powerhouse, because the power is inside of you. You've just been giving it away. So let's regroup. So basically, people pleasing at its core is self-abandonment. It's making other people's comfort more important than yourself. And it's believing that your environment or the people around you or your job or whatever determines your emotional safety, but you determine your emotional safety. And that is where we start with the identity shift, because people pleasers abandon themselves to be liked, but powerhouses love themselves and do not need permission to exist. And I am telling you guys, it is so powerful when you are in a place where you do not give a F about what anybody thinks of you, because that's when you can just exist in your highest potential, because you're not afraid to take risk and try new things, and your upper limit doesn't even exist anymore. And it's so liberating and freeing. And it doesn't mean that you don't care about like your friends and family's opinion and that you're dismissive or aggressive. It just means that you're grounded, stable, and rooted. You don't have to shapeshift yourself for approval. You don't have to shrink to keep the peace. You don't have to dim your light to keep the peace, because you are the peace. And when you live life from that place, you will find that your external environment, most things in your external environment actually start conforming to you. And the things that don't, you just respond to them in a way more adult-like way. So when you stop abandoning yourself to earn love and approval, you become the source of it within yourself, and it's always overflowing. And that's another reason I call my coaching Shine from the Inside, because when I really first started embodying this energy of self-love and radiance, it felt like this warm energy in my chest, and it would overflow outside of me to the point where the people around me would literally say to me, "You are glowing." So when you are full of it, it's overflowing and you are the source. So you don't need to be chasing or running after it in any type of way. And I am telling you, that completely changes the quality of your life. So what does people pleasing actually look like? Like, how does it show up in your day-to-day life? So some of the ways it shows up is difficulty saying no. I think this is a huge one, because a lot of us, and I'll be honest, I didn't even know what boundaries were until I was 35 years old. I read this book about boundaries and I was mind blown. I was like, you can say no? That concept didn't even occur to me for 35 years. And even once I read the book, it took me years before I could say no. And I almost said say no without guilt. And we'll talk about that later. The goal is to never feel guilt, because even now that I am well versed in boundaries, I'm not perfect, but I am so much better. I still feel guilt, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we're human beings, we have feelings, but the difference is I respond to the guilt differently. So that's one of the things that we'll be talking about in this people-pleasing series. So one way it shows up is difficulty saying no, even when your body is screaming yes. Another way people-pleasing shows up is over-apologizing for having needs, opinions, or even existing. And I think a lot of women can really resonate with this, because again, I still catch myself apologizing for things that, like, basically it's like I'm basically apologizing for existing, and it's so unnecessary, but it's also very habitual. But the thing is, I'm at least aware of it, and this is something I want you guys to keep in mind in general, but especially through this series of people pleasing. Awareness is a huge win, because we are running on these subconscious patterns. So the fact that you're able to be aware of it and call it out is a huge win. Another way it shows up in day-to-day life is the constant need for validation. So again, nobody is perfect. So even I find myself getting pulled in different directions or whatever, but at the end of the day, I don't need validation for everyone. Like, yeah, the good validation is nice, I'm not complaining, but I don't need it. And the negative validation, yeah, it can sting sometimes, but I can process through it pretty quickly, and it doesn't derail my entire day. So The difference is needing it versus wanting it and icing on the cake. Another way people pleasing shows up, and this is huge, is neglecting your own needs because you're so focused on overgiving and taking care of other people's needs. Another way this shows up is hiding your true feelings to avoid conflict. So if someone says something that hurts your feelings, you're afraid to say something in case it might cause a blow up. And again, this usually stems from early experiences with our caregivers. And we'll go into more of these later, but I'm just going through a list of how it shows up in our day-to-day life. I already mentioned feeling guilty for setting boundaries. And again, we'll talk about how not to get rid of the guilt, but how to deal with feeling safe in your body while feeling your feelings. And the last thing I'll say on how it shows up in your day-to-day life is modifying your personality or identity depending on who you're with. And I know a lot of people pleasers describe themselves as like, well, I'm just being nice. And first of all, it may be being nice to other people, but it's not being nice to yourself. And it's not being nice. It's a behavioral strategy that you developed to stay regulated in emotionally unpredictable environments. But in the long term, it's actually dysregulating your nervous system because you're so far disconnected from your true identity. And I just want to be clear, I am not shaming anyone if this resonates because again, I used to be a textbook people pleaser, so I get it, I've been there. And the reason I'm sharing all of this is because on the other side, and again, I'm not perfect, I still make mistakes with boundaries and people pleasing and fall into old patterns, but being on this other side is so liberating and freeing, mostly because I feel happy and fulfilled most of the time, but also because I just feel so empowered, where when I was a people pleaser, I just felt like I was a victim to all of these external things. So this is part one, so I'll wrap it up here. And if any of this stirred something in you and you saw yourself in these patterns, I just want you to know that nothing is wrong with you. You don't need to fix yourself, and we're going to be talking about that more. Nobody needs fixed. You just need to come back home to that inner light inside of you, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Because nothing's wrong with you. Your nervous system developed a strategy to learn how to survive, and that's okay. The problem is, as an adult, it's no longer functional, so we need to learn new survival strategies and develop new beliefs. That is all this is. So this is part one. I think this is going to be 4 parts. We'll find out. There's so much I can talk about on people pleasing. But in the next video, we're going to be going deeper on where people pleasing actually comes from. Because again, nobody is born a people pleaser. It is not who you are. It becomes your identity, but it is not who you are. So, and then we'll move into the beliefs that keep you stuck, and then we'll talk about how to work on changing those beliefs. So keep in mind, as we go through this series, you don't have to dim the light to keep the peace, because powerhouses are the peace. You're allowed to be seen, you're allowed to take up space, and you're allowed to live from self-trust and self-love instead of survival. And if this resonated, like, subscribe, and stay with me because we are just getting started on people pleasing. So I will see you next time.